Welcome in, everybody. My name is Deborah Jeffries, and this is our next installment of HR Lunch Bunch. It is the month of September in 2025, and we have the topic today of ensuring safe commuting for all employees. And we are joined by Whitney Bennett, and I will have her provide a more formal introduction when we get there. But one of the things that we do here at HR Lunch Bunch, which we've been doing for over 20 years now, is an opportunity for a variety of topics. And I encourage you, we will use the chat box as an opportunity for you to communicate with each other as well. So feel free to open that up and use that as well. Is an opportunity to cover a variety of topics that impact employers across the board. So one of the things that I mentioned in terms of the chat box, what topics are you struggling with, wanting to learn more about, what would be helpful to you? Because right now I'm planning topics and conversations for 2026. Oh my gosh, I know it's September, but we're already into 2026 in terms of thought process. So I welcome your suggestions and ideas. Now, with that said, uh, HR Lunch Bunch is intended to be a educational forum as well as a networking opportunity for folks. And as you can see right here on the screen, for those of you who are live with us right now, we are going to be doing some polling questions, and we're using the program Mentimeter. And so I ask you to use your phones. Yes, get out those phones and snapshot this QR code so you can participate in the polling questions. And there's a code for you to be able to enter. This won't be the last time you see it. I just wanted to be able to try and get it up here early for you. For those of you who might be new to this program, because I think we have a few new names, I will introduce myself formally. I am Deborah Jeffries with HR Answers. I serve as the vice president of the company. And HR Lunch Bunch was born out of one of our staff members many, many, many years ago. When she departed, she kept it going. And then she said, I need to kind of take a break and walk away. And I said, but this is so fabulous. So I adopted it. So now it's one of my many children. I have many babies within the organization. And usually, while I'm my service host, today we have a co host, guest speaker, Whitney Bennett. She's the education program manager of Commuter Options out of the Bend area. But she's got some good information to share with us. And again, I will have her do a formal introduction of herself. So, our goal is to have a discussion. So, again, one of the great reasons for having some polling questions. But what's worked for you? What hasn't worked in this area? What kinds of things might you be exploring? Again, this is an opportunity for not only discussion and learning from each other, but networking. So if you don't feel comfortable voicing your observations, again, I will pay attention to the chat box. So please feel free to utilize that. We love having cameras on if you feel comfortable so that we're talking and seeing each other as part of the networking approach. But I can appreciate, since we're doing this during lunch, if you're eating food, feel free. I don't care if you're eating. I won't eat because I tend to do a little bit of the talking here with our guests and whatnot. But with that said, I would love it if that's what you're up to. If you had a bad hair day, we don't care about that either. We just want to connect with you as much as possible. And so, with that said, we are going to step away from my PowerPoint kind of projection here and use Whitney's. But again, ensuring safe commuting options for all employees. This is something that Oregon is kind of known for, some parts of our state better than others, but there might even be a few options and ideas that we haven't even thought of and bringing to the table for our employees. And so when our organization became familiar with Whitney and her organization, we thought we probably need to know a little bit more and see what we can do to learn more and to share with folks. So, Whitney, I'm going to stop my share and turn it over to you and ask that you uh, introduce yourself to all of our guests here and welcome you. I'm so glad that you're able to join us for HR Lunch Bunch and be part of the program and share about not only a little bit about the organization, but your role in it and what we can learn and obviously share not only with our organizations, but even outside our organizations, other people within our network as a profession of HR professionals and others, so that we can maybe expand this option for all. So welcome in.
Great. Thank you. I just hold on, let me redo the sharing because it
Are you enticing us for for the coast or waterways. I,
Always.
I
There
love
we go.
it.
Can you see that?
I can see you. I cannot see anything in terms of a screen share at the present time.
Okay, let me reshare. How about now? Is it popping up?
It is popping up.
Okay, excellent. And then I have to look up to see everybody's face there. So, thank you so much, Deborah. I'm really glad to be here. I think we first connected back in 2024 in terms of like planning out a year in advance for these kind of presentations. So I'm
Right.
glad to be able to join this call and share with you some of the things that that we have to offer for in the HR world. And as Deborah said, my name is Whitney Bennett, and I work for a nonprofit called Commute Options. We are located in Central Oregon, but we serve the entire state. And under this umbrella of the nonprofit that I work for is many programs. And one of them, what I'm presenting to you today, is going to be on the program called Oregon Friendly Driver, which is a training that we'll get into. Just a little bit about me. I run the program, the education programs at the nonprofit I work for, and one of them is also Safe Routes to School. My background was actually in land use planning, and then I pulled away from that world to get into education because I feel like that was more immediate resolve, really, to helping our communities function a lot better. So that's where I landed into this world. Let's see if I can use this new fancy app to advance into the code again. And like Deborah was saying, the Menti code is gonna, this QR code will pop up. If you are already, if you're using your phone to view this, to join the Lunch and Learn today, and you're not gonna be able to do the Menti meter, that's fine too. If you have any issues with scanning the QR code, that's fine too. We do have the chat window, so I want to open that up as like if you're just like, I'm just going to put the answers into the chat. That works as well. The Menti is kind of a nice way to poll really quickly and see what everybody's saying. So what we'll do before I launch into what I'm going to talk about really, Oregon Friendly Driver, we're going to kind of like test out the waters here with Menti and see if it's working for everybody. So what should appear now, if you've scanned that QR code, is this specific poll on your screen or on your smartphone. And there we go. It's working for somebody. But see how fun that is?
100% in manufacturing.
This gives us an idea who's in the room and what industries we're kind of connected with. Those that might be just general consulting. And I did get the RSVP sheet too, so I was kind of excited. I'm like, oh, I almost don't need this, but this is a good way for us to get comfortable with the program itself. And I'll wait just a few minutes while those come in. I know we have 9 on it, so I think just a couple more. My QR code's in the way. See if I can move it around. I think I can move it around while we're talking. Yeah. No one from
Well,
education.
and do we show up of the 9 folks that are quote identified? Are we 6 of the 9? Are we 2 of the 9?
Oh, maybe 1 because I scanned the QR code. So it just depends if you scan the QR code, Deborah.
Okay, I did not.
Okay, so
So
yeah.
then I'm not part of that. So because I can see that there's 6 of 9 folks
Yep.
that have weighed in.
Okay.
So that's the only reason why I say that is that just gives us a feel for whether or not people are able to weigh in or whatnot. So there we
Great.
go.
Cool. And I love that I mean, we have 17% for transportation. Oh, we changed. And, but as it's adjusting, oh, I guess that's adjusting because more voting. Yeah, so we have some good representation, and I'm just going to move on for the sake of time, and we'll go into our next one. I get to keep all these results as well, so it stays with me. Come on. Oops. And then this is kind of get a feel for the room as well about what mode you use. Could get that out of the way. How to get to the places you want to go. I know a lot more remote work is happening, and so that's not an option in here. But thinking about even if it's not just your trip to work, but other places that you might be getting around and going to and navigating to throughout the week. Okay, we got a walker and drivers. No judgment, never mode shaming in this world of transportation that I work in. Just curiosity to see people's lived experiences, really. Great. So we've got a combo, we've got a walker, and then we have many that drive to the places. So Oregon Friendly Driver is incredibly relevant to everybody in this room and also how it can be used in the workplace. All right, I'm going to go ahead and continue on. Commute Options, like I said, I work for this nonprofit and we do many things. And one of them is this is Oregon Friendly Driver, along with we coordinate van pools and we offer education to young students about walking and biking safety. We have the Get There program that also helps with transportation options. So we try to encourage people to use the different transportation options and then we provide incentives to them when they do. And we have an e-bike education course as well.
Mm.
But the other thing I'll pause and say, if you do have questions as we're moving through, you can ask them as we go through. I don't need, like, just like Deborah said, this is meant to be a conversation. And so if anything pops up you want to bring up, there's also going to be time at the end open for questions and conversation. The chat box is open too, so feel free to use that as we go through. There's lots of slides. I don't need to get through all of them, but our travel plans today in general will be, I'm going to talk about what is Oregon Friendly Driver because it's not all really specific in the name. And then we'll get into a little bit, you're going to get a little taste of what the training is that we do offer to employees so you can see why it is relevant. Sometimes we take it for granted, some of these things that we do when we get behind the wheel and it's been a while since many of us have actually taken a formal driver education class. So we'll just kind of hit on some of the often missed pieces of education that we bring into the training. And then we'll talk about why it's really important that every single organization integrates this in to, I'd say, onboarding or any form of education, continued education for their employees, and then how it can be integrated in the different formats. So what is Oregon Friendly Driver? And you're probably starting to get the vibe that it does have to do with people walking and biking, but really what the purpose of it is to create safer roads. And there's all this verbiage here of how we do it through webinars. It's a 60 to 90-minute class in its most simplest form. We offer it in person or via webinar. We offer it to groups. We have it online for individuals. It's completely free. And I or one of my fellow instructors comes to the workplace, comes to a designated location and offers these trainings to talk about what drivers need to know in order to navigate the roads safely around other users. And what this does, this education really does, is it not only protects the person driving when you're driving to or from work, but also thinking of it in workplaces that involve commercial driving or the people that are driving all day for work. They're navigating the roads with people walking and biking. So it's a relevant topic in order to keep people safe. We're funded by Oregon Department of Transportation, and they wanted to have less people dying on our roads. So ultimately, no matter who's at fault, they just want to get us down to zero road fatalities and severe injuries. And so this is one of the vehicles to do it, and that is why that they've funded Commute Options in order to distribute it across the state. A little bit of our core values is really trying to create it accessible to all. That's why I say I come and we travel all around the state to bring it to people, but we also have it in versions like webinars and the online version so that it can be brought into the workplace in a way that works for different people. And we have it in a couple different languages as well. And then ultimately to build confidence in drivers and create safer communities. And in that way, it really does make a more it benefits the workplace overall. So like I mentioned, we're sponsored by Oregon Department of Transportation. So this program itself, the training has completely been vetted by Oregon Department of Transportation, and everything that's in it is what they want to make sure all the drivers know. We're also basing it on the crash statistics to make sure when we see like something's being missed, our drivers don't know some information, we make sure that we're covering it. And it always is a relationship to the most vulnerable road users. So looking at this slide specifically, we'll stick it at that. We're the statewide lead administrators, and then we work with contractors across the state to help deliver the program. So if someone in Portland was like, I really like to have an in-person class, we have the Street Trust in Portland, and they have instructors that they send over to those in-person classes. And so we have different people seated in Salem, in Lane County, and also in other parts of Southern Oregon that could be available to instruct these different classes. And what's in it? So for the 60 to 90 minute training, it covers why crashes happen. And we'll get into this like lens of what we look for. And it's not just about the laws, but we're going to go into really like just making sure people make it to the places they want to go and not about who's right or wrong. So we keep it really positive, even though it's not the most happy topic when we're talking about the tendency for crashes to be fatal and cause severe injuries to vulnerable roadway users. And then we cover what do we mean by friendly by a series of different slides and videos. And I'm going to give you a sample of those because so you can see the quality of the videos that we have and kind of the lens that we look through. And we talk about infrastructure. So there's all kinds of new infrastructure. And when we go into the workplace, what we do is we actually contact who we're the lead and we find out what are the relevant new infrastructure or things that often maybe there's some pain points in a particular community that the commercial drivers are having to deal with. And we make sure we integrate that specifically into the presentation and the training so that we're talking about it through from a more localized context. And then we go into the common crashes as well. And I'll dive a little bit more into the format, but just a snapshot here. These are the different ways it can come into the workplace. And the online course being the one that's obviously the most accessible anytime, it's all free. And then the other variations where we come into come and offer the training to a group of individuals. So the reason why I do so much of this work is I want to expand the reach. I want to hit as many people as possible. And really talking to HR as a way we can be like, this is like really something that we could hit a large captured audience because it is hard with our program. It's a free program, but there's not necessarily direct insurance benefits if you take Oregon Friendly Driver. And that limits how often people just decide they want to take a 90-minute training. But when we have a captive audience, it ensures that we can get this material out to people and ensure that they have the safety skills to make the streets safer. So there are some entities that have made it a requirement. Sometimes it's a city staff have to keep an updated Oregon Friendly Driver certificate on file. And so it can come from the different organizations and agencies. That is kind of the only way we have like the teeth in order to help ensure that people will take it and follow up with us and take it. The other captive audience, as you can see, is our driver education students. So we get this out to every single driver education student in Central Oregon, and we have many others across the state we're hitting. We also have credits we can give to bus drivers, but really the area where I'd like to see us grow and reach is in how we are reaching government agencies and commercial drivers. And so coming in from this avenue of like, well, how can we embed it more into existing trainings for new employees, existing employees, so that it is something that is more out there for different employees to take.
Can I ask you a question?
Yep.
I'm looking at so those numbers and whatnot, and I'm thinking about when you're providing education to your groupings and whatnot, we've got our young people who are learning to ride bikes and being safer on the road, kind of from like bottom up. And then you've got your drivers, and I'm thinking, top down, so that there's kind of like this meet in the middle kind of component. I, since I'm not familiar with the educational program, the 90 minutes or anything else, I'm learning right along with the rest of you. Um, is that I'm not sure if I know what my question is. How, for not your drivers, but even your young biking individuals, um, programming for them to make them more aware of vehicles and how, I mean, I don't know about the rest of you, but young drivers, riders on their bikes, zipping in and out, not being as thoughtful about the fact that who they're sharing the road with and making sure that they get from point A to point B.
Yeah, definitely is a concern. So it's interesting. So the Safe Routes to School program is where we teach the bike education, right? Under a different program altogether, also
Okay.
funded by Oregon Department of Transportation and sometimes different city entities. But that is the idea. So in Safe Routes to School, we teach the students that when they're on bikes, we have a fleet of 30 bikes and we go into schools and we teach them how to ride in the road. And we touch on that definitely during the training. We go into the fact that it takes a conversation on both ends, but we know that our audience is going to be drivers, and so we kind of have it in that coming. You're driving, so this is what you can do, and then this is the really the heart of what Oregon Friendly Driver is all about. Is it's really easy for us to be like, well, what about them? And the tricky thing with if we can go even we teach fourth graders, so fourth graders are and fifth graders, they are still developing, right? Young writers are still developing. So we teach them what they have capacity to learn at the age that they're at. And then we also get it in middle school as well. And then there's time in between that period and then once they get old enough to drive that whether or not we also are a very small nonprofit, and also anybody doing Safe Routes to School is kind of small. I wish we were bigger and it was flooding every single youth had access to bike education, but the program and the funding and the capacity is not quite there yet. The other thing that's a gap is when we talk about this during the training is that when learning to drive, you're required to get a driver's license. And so many take driver education classes, but not all. And it's not required by the state of Oregon to actually take the class, and you can get your license by taking the test. And so um, but still, there's education, and you get a license. But when you bike, there's no program that is a licensing program. It would be fantastic, and I present this in the discussion because I'm like, I get it. It would be amazing, but we're not there yet, I'm gonna say. So we're trying to get in front of these different audiences to talk about it in that like there's a lot that everybody can do, but right now for as the you're behind the wheel, these are the things that you can do.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So then that's what brings me perfectly into this segment of why we talk about it like this, because during the training it kind of it can trigger people because we've all had those spirit experiences. I too, like I drive as well and I walk, and I so there's some that walk and some that do the combo. And I've been biking and gotten like infuriated with other bikers and people walking. I've been driving and we've all been there. There's questionable drivers, there's questionable bikers, there's a lot going on the road. And really the idea is like, well, if we can start to understand a little bit about why, and if we empower our employees with the why and the understanding, then it really helps to elevate overall safety. And whether we're talking about making sure the employees are making it safely to work, whether they're driving, they will also gain a ton walking and biking and transit use understanding with Oregon Friendly Driver, because we do talk about what people walking and biking can do and how they're supposed to relate to the roadway. So it helps to ensure safety even if you're driving to work or driving during that's your job, that's part of your role. And just to kind of highlight this is that what this slide is showing is that what the statistics consistently are showing is that the fault of a crash is pretty much evenly distributed. The reasons for the crash on these bullets here change a bit, but often the distribution stays about the same as we kind of track the crash data. So what this kind of means is, okay, well, everyone's at fault at some point. There's this really spread fault, but when there's a crash between a person driving and a person walking, who's going to be worse off? And you can just kind of visualize that one. I didn't put a poll question in there, but this would have been a good chance for it. But the person walking, right? And for those that have said that they do sometimes walk and do use that combo of transportation, there's a different feeling you get when you're walking. And even if you didn't select that you walked, if you think about this, how often do you park your car and maybe cross the street? And you're walking to the places you want to go. So, and there's a certain feeling of when you are doing that. It's different than when you're in a car. So the word often that comes to mind for that is a vulnerability. when you're out of your car. And like I said, it could be as simple as crossing the street. And there's laws that protect people when they're not in their cars. And that is really the context for the Oregon Friendly Driver, is to dive into these laws and explain why there's a little bit more we can do to protect vulnerable roadway users to make sure everybody makes it to the places they want to go. In the end, it doesn't matter who's at fault if something does happen, because no one ever wins in a crash. So we'll get into the kind of engagement of the mentee in a second. Just a couple more of like why, how we got to here we are. This is like a slide that can take up 90 minutes, and I'll try to spend about 20 seconds. But we've moved away from more simple forms of transportation, and we've really designed our roadways to get to the workplace. Um, I see that, yes, people tend to not look both ways when walking and just stepping into the streets. Correct. And this is a common reason for crashes. And the idea there, so when there is a crash, like between us in a situation like that, no one wins. But we know that people, this totally happened to me. I was driving, someone didn't look, they stepped right in front of my car. And if we know these things are going to happen, the idea is that, well, could we just like anticipate it ahead of time and then avoid the crash altogether? And that saves us all a lot more time if we're trying to get to work than if there ends up being a crash. Even though, again, we don't have a licensing program for people who want to walk either. Same thing. Um, and then, so where we got to where we are right now is that cars came around 1920 and then stuck. We liked it. We created our whole infrastructure to serve cars, which means that the 30% of the population that doesn't drive, which is the statistic for the state of Oregon, is forced to interact with cars in a design and layout that isn't serving them and their vulnerability. And so often these intersections of where we do see a person walking into the street in a place that doesn't seem correct or not acting safely, it's because the design is really focused on serving cars, but people still need to get around. And there's not the infrastructure for them. And as we figure that out and fine tune it, education is coming in. And the intent here is that, can we bring this education to everyone out there so that people in the meantime are not dying on the roads? Because no one wins when there's a crash. So why does this all matter? Like I've been kind of hinting at, is you don't have to read all of these. It's a little lot. I'm happy to share the slides and any of the statistics after this. But you can just see that injuries resulting from roadway incidents involving motorized land vehicles is a leading cause of work-related deaths. And so this is happening out on our roads. And distracted walking, talking, plus distracted driving is just as high of a risk. And then, so people are getting injured while behind the wheel. And people are getting injured on their way to work to walk. People are getting injured when they're riding their bike. And so the more information we can get out there, more pedestrians are dying on our roads in Oregon than ever before. And then this like struggling statistic of Oregon, although we like, I think do a really good job, is it has the 8th highest traffic fatality rate in the country. That's like that. I had to have people, no doubt, were like calling me when we pulled this one up, like, no way. And we had to run the numbers and so we're in a place that we don't want to be. And right now, a good medicine for it is using education while we try to work on infrastructure and all of the other ways that we can help make it safe. I mean, this is an example of a small, I would say, like a dump truck, and how dangerous it can be when driving, and how the vulnerable roadway user can be really almost invisible to someone driving to do a delivery or to be on their route specifically, whatever it might be. And again, ideally the people don't walk into the blind spots of a truck, but often how do we know where those blind spots are if we're, say, maybe even one of those 4th or 5th graders waiting for the bus?
So those are all blind spots in
Yes.
terms of the amount of space.
Yes.
That is a huge amount, especially on the right and the left.
Yeah.
I get the back. I've been behind trucks and they see nothing back there.
Yeah.
Um, and I can see the piece right in the immediate front. That seems a little deep in terms of, but that's that's a lot of space on the right and the left.
Yeah, and that's then I just read another report today, this morning, about just general SUVs and the larger trucks and the way the design is. And what we're finding with the new design of just say like different, like I said, it doesn't have to be a delivery driver, but maybe someone that just drives a larger SUV to get to the workplace or do small deliveries of newspapers. The visibility is getting worse and worse, and these blind spots in personal vehicles are getting bigger and bigger. And it's good for us to know that if we have one of these vehicles, and we like to talk about that in terms of, it's hard for us to know if we're the pedestrian trying to look at what's going, trying to decide, and also trying to make eye contact when a window is heavily tinted, which is very, very common. And so there's a little bit of unfair distribution of vulnerability there.
Well,
All
and I
right,
can't speak for the rest of you guys, but I'm a shorty. I'm only 5'3",
me too.
and
Oh, you're taller than
my side mirrors in my vehicle also create a blind spot for me. When I'm at like a four-way stop, I got to make sure that I actually like look up or look down because when I'm at mine close to my house, if I'm not careful, I might not actually see the car that's at the four-way stop coming the other direction because that side mirror is just in the right spot based on how I sit in my car.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm 5 feet tall. I love Zoom for that. You would never know.
Right?
All right, so I'm gonna get everyone. I don't have a Menti for this, but I'm gonna let everyone pop in the chat on this one. What you're looking at is this on the side is friendly or not, right? Is this person driving this white car is taking a left-hand turn, acting as an Oregon friendly driver, based on kind of what you've heard me be saying as to what we're looking at, the lens we're looking through. And so if you think this person's acting as an Oregon friendly driver, you can put friendly, and if you think not, you can put not. You can see the person on the bike and you can see the paint on the road, so you can make a judgment call on that one. Let's get a couple participants in that chat, and I'll wait about just about a minute for the sake of time. Anybody? Good. I'll take that. Thank you, Mel. Not friendly. Great. Perfect. Okay, we're on the right trajectory. Good, good, good. Excellent, excellent. So exactly. Okay, what we're looking at obviously is we do have a person on their bike that's wrong way riding, right? And that it would be considered against the law and would be considered unsafe. But the person driving has a choice. And if they choose, like you are all answering, uh, I like the multitasking. I'll take that. That you can choose. You can be checking all your blind spots, and what they are saying in driver ed now is like you're searching and you're scanning and you're making sure that it's clear for you to make that turn. And then you're gonna see this person on the bike. You could continue going and you wouldn't, and there could be a crash, and you would not be financially responsible for this crash because the person on the bike is wrong way riding. But you're going to carry that in quite a few spots, whether you're hurt or not. It will sink in, and you'll have to deal with that for the rest of your life. And so the idea is, I like that, waiting behind the line and just let the person on the bike continue on through the intersection, so then you can make your turn, because in the end no one wins when they're a crash. It doesn't matter who's financially responsible or legally in a situation. We just want to end these kind of situations. Wrong way riding is the most common thing that people on bikes do that would be considered the illegal activity, right? It's incredibly dangerous, but it's explainable, really. Wrong way riding happens, if you remember, we all remember being young at one point, right? And you learn to walk by traffic. And when you're walking by traffic, you're kind of taught a certain way to walk by traffic. My grandma would tell me, my grandma, it's my mom. My mom and my grandma tell me to make sure you're facing the traffic so you can see it coming. And if I took that and then got on a bike without any education, I would probably think I was doing the safest thing. Because you can see in the graphic that it's like nice paint, but our Oregon roads don't look like this. Give it one good snowstorm, one rainstorm, there's not that paint there. So the reality is you're just kind of like, maybe this is the best thing to do. This is what I would do if I was walking. And you put yourself in an unsafe situation. That's one reason Another reason are by design. Sometimes we don't design our roads to make it easy for the person on the bike to get to the other side. So they're stuck on that side if they need to make that left turn. And then I'll be real, just like there are not amazing drivers out there, there's also not amazing bikers out there that make bad decisions. And so there's three solid reasons as to why this could happen. Um, and it doesn't change what we're looking at is that no one wins when there's a crash. To be an Oregon friendly driver, we want to teach everybody to just be paying attention to all users out there, not assume they're just people driving on the road. And then that ensures that everyone gets to the places they want to go. People get to their workplaces on time and all the other things. And then if they're out on the weekends, they don't have to call in on Monday, be like, sorry, I'm not going to make it because I have to do repairs or go to a court case because I had a crash. So then we're going to go into a few fun questions just to test our knowledge here. So here's your next Menti. In Oregon, which of the following is a legal crosswalk? If you're having any issues accessing the Menti, you're welcome to drop A, B, or C into the chat. And I'll give you just a quick, let's make sure some of those come in. There we go. Get that out of the way. Excellent. Great. So A plus, you guys all got that one. And this is a really fun one. This get gotten incorrect very often. And I think one of the reasons is because, well, there's lots of reasons, but one of them is well, lots of times the more north we are, the more, if we have people that have lived in Washington or even in certain parts of, different parts of the country, it would be legal crosswalks are everywhere. And so often there's a lot of debate on this one. But in Oregon, from corner to corner is um, every a corner to corner is a crosswalk. So we've got lots of different crosswalks, and I specifically want to show this slide. Sometimes you're like, why the heck is that person crossing there? And this is like the Oregon Friendly Driver Conduct. Like we sometimes make assumptions over situations when we're driving, and the reality is that by design, a person walking is going to be crossing there because there's not other options. And so having our people driving have that on their like awareness helps to make it like anticipate there might be people in places that you kind of wouldn't originally think, and then also understand why, and then maybe they show up at the workplace happier or they actually show up, right? Because there's not a crash that results in unanticipated crossing. So we're looking at T intersections right there. The one on the right is 3 crosswalks, and then there's kind of that hidden, and even this one picture on the left, there's the 3 crosswalks. And no, we don't want people to cross here. It's not safe. There's best practices for crossing, but there's a bus stop right there. And there might not be any other safe crossing anywhere nearby, and a person may have to make the crazy run across.
Yeah, if only they ran instead of walked slowly in the dark with dark clothing.
Right, that's definitely not a win. But again, I always bring it back to no one wins when there's a crash. We do know that that does happen. There's specific spots. I live in Bend that I know that that happens often, and I don't want to get it. And I know, like, I wish they wore bright clothing, but I know they don't. So I'm just gonna avoid that crash altogether. But yes, I like to pass out reflectors in my free time. My grandma always said we had to wait till a corner to cross. Perfect. That's perfect. I love that simplicity of it. All right, we've got another one. I'm going to go right to the Menti on that one. This one, if you on the Menti, it'll probably give the more of a description of it. So this is specific to someone that is crossing the street with a cane or a seeing eye dog. And how long do you have to remain stopped? Great. Okay. So good. I like the direction we're going. Perfect. Exactly. They have to get all the way across the street. I have a image here. We also have a really high quality video. If we are going to get to it, you'll see my mother is low vision, and I made her cross over Highway 20. And we had a drone videoing the whole entire thing, and everyone stopped. It was great. So whether it's a yellow cane or yellow or red tipped cane, they need to make it all the way across. We talk about this. for a reason, like to specify and remind everyone this is the law, and to talk about when they don't have a cane, if they don't have a seeing eye dog, then it's different. It's the lane, they have to get through your lane and the lane next to you, or a safety island, right? But then there's best practices. Because if you wait for anybody to get all the way across the street, then you're sending a very clear message to the opposite lanes of traffic that there's a person trying to cross the street. And so this just heightens the safety on the roadway, and it might take an extra 30 seconds depending on where you're at, but it helps. It's like best practice for safe driving. School bus drivers practice this one generally. So it comes up. Okay, well, you get to watch the video so that you can see that sample, like I said, of what some of our videos are like in the training. And you'll see my mom.
That every corner is a potential crosswalk. As a person driving, always look for various signs indicating a person's intent to cross, even before any part of the person extends into the crosswalk. A person shows intent to cross by extending any part of their body, a wheel, cane, crutch, or bicycle, into the crosswalk. As a person driving, you must stop before the curb cut and remain stopped at any crosswalk, whether marked or unmarked. When possible, establish eye contact. You must wait until persons crossing have cleared your lane and the adjacent lane before proceeding. It is especially important to come to a full stop to leave time and space for those who are elderly, visually impaired, or living with a disability. If the person has low vision or is blind, you must wait until they are completely across the roadway. If you see a vehicle stopped at a crosswalk, passing them is illegal.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and skip through that mentee real quick. So you saw that. That was my mom. She's adorable. She's also about 5 feet tall. And we have multiple videos throughout the training that we've made to try to kind of hit all different types of learners and get some of the more difficult to explain pieces of the content, put them into that kind of visual way. And we talk a lot about bikes, but for the sake of time, this is obviously just a little bit of a sample of what's in here. And we talk about why people on bikes will make decisions similar to that example I talked about the person on the bike wrong way riding. Like, this is why they might do it. Now that we know why, we're way more likely to check the bike lane in both directions and anticipating it. Bike lane by bike. I want to leave some time too, so if you kind of like see something in these slides and you're like, I've always wondered about this thing, I'm happy to answer any of those kind of questions too. How they're supposed to be on, why a person on a bike may leave a bike lane. There are many, many reasons why a person on a bike may leave a bike lane. And sometimes when we're driving, we don't see why, because maybe there's an obstruction in the bike lane. Maybe they need to make a turn that we didn't know that there was a turn for when we're driving. So rather than always being in this position of being like, why are they here? It's more like, oh, we're navigating to the places we want to go using the roadway network that we have. And it might mean that they're going to be in your lane. It might even be a sharrow that requires them to be in your lane. And that's where I'm going to kind of go through this a little bit. We talk about the different types of crossings, the way that they're supposed to be used, and the reality of what we see. Put that on your radar that people sometimes don't push the button. Did you have a question, Deborah?
No, I didn't push the button. I didn't hit record.
Oh, we can do this again.
Oh. Anyway, please continue.
Okay. Like I said, often bike lane, this is the reality of what these look like. And so often people on bikes need to leave the bike lane. And so I try to empower people that are driving when I give the training to like be looking at the full environment and anticipate if a person on a bike might have to depart the bike lane for any reason. Then there's a million little bullets here. You do not have to read these, but they're just all the examples that we go into in the training about why someone would depart the bike lane. Because as a person who also bikes, I do feel that, yeah, I got the recording in progress notification too. Okay. um, When I do get into a main lane of traffic and I know the person behind me driving is like, why are they here? All I think all the time is like, well, at least they see me. They may be perturbed and not know why I had to get out of the bike lane, but at least they see me, because being invisible when you're a vulnerable roadway user is way scarier and way more dangerous. And then, like I said, we cover scenarios. I give real life examples, all the times I've been hit, which unfortunately is times instead of time, but we talk about that and why they happen and empower drivers with tools that they have to make sure that they can avoid them. We talk about distracted driving. And I always mention, sure, people on bikes will be distracted biking or walking too, but again, the person on the bike and walking is much more likely to die when there is a crash. So there's just a certain level of responsibility we have when we're in a car. And then we talk about speed, because ultimately on all sides, while biking or driving, speed is the one tool that we have that can greatly reduce the number of deaths we have on our roadways. So if we all slow down and make sure that we're abiding by those speeds and making sure we feel safe, even if the speed is posted, you might not feel safe given the conditions on the road, that's definitely gonna help. Many other things are covered. Yes, we talk about e-bikes. This is this growing thing, and I go into the nitty-gritty of it. On the side note, we also have an e-bike education course that is a 5-minute online course. I do that in person too, but I touch on it here from the vantage point of people driving, because there's things that we need to know. They're going faster than we realize. And if we start to understand that, it's going to help ensure that you're having a safer experience on the road. And then all of these other specifics on infrastructure that I like to cover.
What's a Sharo?
A Sharo is the shared lanes roadway. So it's marked with two chevrons, a chevron and a person on a bike. And that it will be on the road when a person on a bike and a person driving are going to be in the same lane. So the road is too narrow for a person on a bike to be beside the person on driving. So they go into the main lane. And so you'll see that marking, and that means, okay, those markings, if there's a person on the shoulder, they're going to have to get into the main lane because there's not enough space. And they're always in places where speeds are slow. And they're often used in areas where to navigate a person on a bike so they can avoid the main arterials and get them on more of a, say, low stress network, and to communicate to people on bikes and people driving kind of where the people on bikes are going to be. All right, so the benefits of this, all of those things, when people take Oregon Friendly Driver, how it benefits the workplace is we got fewer crashes and incidences, less lateness to work because there's an incident. Safer driving is always a beneficial thing, greater safety awareness. The other overall thing I like to talk about with this is that we want to make the experience for people walking and biking comfortable, because the more people that walk and bike, especially the ones that are like choosing to, that means the less people might be driving. If there's less cars on the road, it's better for the people driving, so it means less traffic. So this intent of this is to help with the whole kind of balancing act of transportation so that we can help distribute the modes a little bit more effectively and reduce the amount of congestion we're seeing on our roads. So it can support more active transportation. It can help have higher morale. I went pretty far with these one, but really support corporate wellness, sustainability initiatives in so many different ways. It can be a useful tool. So then this is also an opportunity, if anybody has questions as well, to say, well, how could I use this? How can I do this? And this is it. There's the online course, it's free. You can scan that. I can share it afterwards. We do the live webinars, and then more and more we're doing in person because everyone wants in person. It's so much more fun and effective, but it's not always realistic. So there's those options. The presentation is, like I said, it can be done in 60 minutes. It's better in 90 minutes because it allows for a lot more conversation. But we have a couple different versions that we can make sure, like we do lunch and learns at workplaces, and understanding. I find mostly with the workplaces one, like we can get them for 60 minutes. I've even done 30 minutes, so we can adapt. But if anybody has any questions specifically about like how this might be integrated, or has thoughts of being like, oh, I think I could do it this way, you're welcome to kind of chime in or put anything in the chat here. I'm going to have a Menti too to give you the opportunity. If you're like, I don't really feel like talking out loud right now, you can just enter into the Menti. Minimum attendance expectancy. It depends on the location. If it's like, and normally 5 was where we set the minimum. But we've done them if it's in the town where the instructor lives, that instructor will go if there's going to be 2. So we're pretty flexible on that. We don't expect like 30 people to be in the room. We also see if we can get this information to 2 employees, they might share it with 2 more. And so there is like that balancing that does happen. Any other questions on that? You're welcome. Oh, I love that you popped that one in. I wish tourists would have to take short presentation prior to traveling. So we just did a big marketing effort on Travel Oregon, and the idea with the traffic to Travel Oregon is often people both that drive in the state of Oregon, but also that come to kind of get information. And so we dumped a bunch of money from our marketing budget into that to hopefully get that out to people that might be traveling. Great. Yeah. So then I want to open it up. Questions. Anybody have any other questions? And we're kind of going in that trajectory. If you have any, you can pop it into the Menti if you feel like it, or you can put it into the chat.
So can I ask a question that's pivoting a little bit? And yeah, the recording will be done, probably sent out tomorrow for those of you who are asking. So my bad. I was just kind of like forgetting that I hit the button. So my apologies. Do you have any data? And if you don't, that's okay. I just thought I would ask because I mean Portland is very kind of bike centric and pushes that. There's other parts of the state that are also very friendly towards that. And then there, obviously some employers incentivize employees. In fact, I thought I would put a question just to kind of share with people and ask if they do things in this regard. But do you have any data or information around what percentage of employers or people bike to work versus take alternative versus driving themselves? We just had one employee who moved close enough that now she can walk to work on the days when it's not, pouring down rain. And we used to have a staff member who used to bike to a bus stop, take the bus the majority of the way, and then bike the remainder of the distance. And that was her daily thing, unless there was some kind of evening activity or something that she was going to participate in. But that's a high commitment to the commuting option. But that also was very much her value set and in terms of her lifestyle as a whole. She was also, uses cloth napkins, and her lifestyle as a whole was very much like recycle, reuse, and whatnot. So I'm just wondering whether or not you have any stats on commuting and what we're all doing in this state as a whole of all the options.
Yeah, I don't have them on hand, but through our Get There and all the transportation options work, we do have access to stats like that. I do know, I mean, specifically in the Safe Routes to School, we're down to, I think the number is 8% of the students walk and bike to school, which is down from like 60% back when many of us were going to school, which is a huge reduction. Huge. And that's kind of why Safe Routes to School is even exists, is like we need to get those numbers back up, but a lot of that's through improving infrastructure. So in terms of who's walking and who's using transportation options to get to the workplace, if you want that information, I can get it to you. It would come through, like I said, the Get There platform, because anybody the way Get There works is that we promote this to the workplace and people sign up. And when they're signed up for it and they log their trips that are some other form of transportation, taking transit, walking, biking, they get points. And in certain regions of the state, they can add those points up, and then they get a $20 gift certificate after a certain amount of time. And so we're collecting all that data in order to get some statistic to see, well, what portion of your workplace is actually doing it. It's skewed because it just depends on who's logging their trips, obviously. But
Right.
there's a lot of work out there that's trying to gather information about what percentage of employees are actually actively engaging in these other forms of transportation.
Yeah.
So, and I could explore that. So I can shoot you some information, Deborah, afterwards if you're curious about it. I'd have to ask. Eva is our person that has access to all of those numbers. It's in Portland, just like you said, the numbers are drastically higher. It depends on the year. I mean, during COVID, everyone worked from home and more people bike for play. But
Right.
recently, there's been really like people are super interested in this to say, well, who is really doing it? And the numbers are really impressive in Oregon overall in more urban areas.
Yeah, and there's more and more organizations that are doing things to support. And when I say organizations, there it over at the coast, I'm familiar with an organization or two that where they are solely built around transportation, mass transportation, small mass transportation for folks because they don't have transportation and they're trying to provide it. So because if they don't have it, how can they get to work in some respects? When you're in a larger city, there are so many more options. Sometimes employers will encourage carpooling because then that also reduces the number of parking spaces they need to try and reserve, or parking is expensive in some fashion. From a, COVID standpoint, yeah, a lot of people, were working from home. A lot of them still are. As someone who doesn't have, I have a job that really commuting is not something that is uh, often on the table because I go on site with clients and they're all over this state that, it's not really kind of an option for me. I'm on the road a lot, and it seems like there are more cars than ever. And it's kind of like, why aren't you guys on that Wilsonville bus? Get on that. I would love to have that be more options for someone like myself, even going to, I live in Salem, but I work in Tigard. So I need something that is from point A to point B, but it's like get on three different vehicles. And so what are those kinds of options? And I just got for Christmas last year an e-bike. And so it's something that for the smaller trips around my community, that's something that instead of getting in a car. So being more mindful about what you're doing, how you're doing it, where you're going, how you're going. So it's not just about work, although work can be a big thing. Now I'm not on the road when I'm not traveling for a client. I can work from home. So I'm not using the gas. I'm not doing those things that I was every single day. So I sort of get to do something that's a little different, and so it's just how can we as employers think about options, and maybe it's something that gets some reimbursable. Maybe it's our own incentive program. Maybe it's encouraging people to explore. It's learning about the options that are close to us that we might be able to take advantage of for our employees to learn more about. But part of that's just talking about it. If we're not talking or encouraging people, or sometimes I didn't even know that some of the people that they just live like 3 blocks away. They too are commuting to the Tigard and Tualatin area, and that's why we live where we live. Easy freeway access, and it's a straight shot. Well, all you have to do is start talking to people. And it's like, well, what if we took turns? Could we do that? Would our schedule permit that? So I'm just suggesting that, some of those numbers might be helpful to take back to our employers and say, this is happening more and more, or could we start something? Or in our building, there's all these people who are in our building. Maybe we could start creating something.
Yeah, and I will just a plug if that is something that is of interest to anybody on this call, definitely reach out to me. Depending on where you are in the state, there's different options out there and get their platforms that are people are doing that and they go in and they will talk to about transportation options. So yeah, I think like having the conversation, like you said, is important, Deborah. But with that, if anybody, I know we're at the hour, if Deborah, you have any closing things, but if anybody ever wants to reach out, if you'd like to schedule something, my information is here. And it's been a real pleasure to be able to share Organ Friendly Driver with everybody here.
Thank you, Whitney. I appreciate the information. And I know that several people were asking about confirming that it was free for employers and being able to bring it in and wanting to talk to their employers. And if you unshare your screen, I'll just close out with a couple of the closing slides here so that people have that as well as we wrap up our information. And one of the things that I want to make sure that people are thoughtful of is that do take Whitney's information and be able to reach out and talk to her or any of the other folks that are involved in the program so that you have a chance to follow up or bring information later down the road. So my question always is to you is there something here that you walked away with that you can start working on, or someone else that you'll share the information with? And maybe it's something you put in a newsletter or an email out to people, just asking them to think about what could they start doing themselves, even if it's not an organization initiative. It might just be an individual kind of initiative, and maybe that's something that they would like to do. That's always a good thing. It's never a bad thing. And so then again, I know that we've had some opportunity for questions. I just want to bring up an opportunity for you to know that next month, October 1st, we'll be talking about the concept around belonging and fostering that within your organization, building those connections. Then we'll have Natalie Miller will join us from Apprente, and that is a focus on apprenticeship programs, but not your typical apprenticeship programs. And believe it or not, there's even apprenticeship programs for HR professionals, and she'll have an opportunity to share that with us. That'll be in November. And then in December, we're going to talk a little bit about how wonderful it is to be an HR department of one. So for many of you, that does apply. But even if that isn't applying to you, you might want to attend for a friend. So that will be how we end our year in December. So that's what's coming up. So thank you so much, Whitney. Again, I appreciate you spending some time with us. And all of you who were here, thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you. And again, if you've got content ideas or topic ideas for next year, I encourage you to let me know. What are you struggling with? What would you like to learn about? What would you like to discuss with others? Let's bring it in and have some fun with those conversations as well. So thanks again for being part of this. I appreciate you being here. Take care of yourself and have a good rest of the month. It's just the beginning. All righty, we'll call it a good one for this one. Thanks so much for joining HR Lunch Bunch this time around, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Whitney. Really appreciate it. And if anybody needs to, I'm always the last one in the room, but I will officially end the recording.